And welcome to another Comics Week in Review. Stephen is having a little bit of trouble, some technical problems with his internet connection, so the rest of the crew here, we're sort of flying on our own here. So who knows what will happen here. This is Ed Garrett. We're here with Nick Duran and with Joe Gagel. How are you guys doing?
Good, Ed.
Oh, us. I thought you were asking TV Land. I'm doing great.
There you go. All right. We're going to start real quick with some news that's coming out this week in the next issue of Superman, which is Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr.'s run. We're going to have a new power introduced and a slightly redesigned costume. No word on the power yet other than that it's going to be something unstable and destructive and not something Superman really, really wants to have. We'll see what that turns out to be. And the costume supposedly has already been done in a variant cover. We'll show you what's on here being published on some of the websites. Basically, the difference here is that the collar's done a little bit differently. There's now yellow in the belt, which I've been sort of missing since we hit the new 52. And he's got what looks to be fingerless gloves. So we've got the, I'm not sure what you want to call it for the look, but that's coming up this week. What do you guys think?
Well, I was on board until you said fingerless gloves.
I know.
Maybe he's going to be a little more hands-on.
I'm thinking he's going to ride the rails.
Well, I haven't seen much on fingerless gloves since the early days of Madonna in the 80s, but apparently that's where we're heading here.
Yeah, I think just as long as he didn't put on, just as long as we don't get the Speedo back, I'm fine with that.
There we go.
Yeah, no underoos for Nick?
So the only way you can make Superman cool to people who didn't grow up with Superman is by not. It's hard. It's a challenge with his blue suit and
the Boy Scout image.
The only person who can pull off a cape is Batman and Magneto.
You know, the thing is, when they first hit the New 52, I think Rags Morales was working on, I want to say Action, I may be wrong on that, but his run was actually really good, and it was bringing Superman back to his roots. If you go back to the early Superman stories, he was almost a social crusader. He wasn't the big new Boy Scout. He actually was sort of a subversive force in some ways, and he was bringing him back to that basic, but they seem to have lost that, and we're still now in these otherworldly Superman picks up a planet and throws it like a baseball kind of stories. And I hate to say this, it's not that I hate what I'm seeing in Superman right now. Even though I'm a big Jeff Johns fan, I've not been as impressed with this Ulysses storyline. So it's not that I hate it, but it's just not what I expected when I heard Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr. I was expecting something that was, totally reeking of awesome, and it's okay. It's just not great.
He's got to go up against Action Comics, and Action Comics has been nailing it.
Yeah, in fact, Action also comes out this week with the end of the Horrorville storyline, which ought to be pretty interesting. But
much like Marvel, we know that DC is on their moving hiatus. Plus, both of the big two are heading towards a world-changing event. So how much coasting are we going to see on both sides for the next 2 or 3 months, as far as quality deep stories that may just get rebooted in a few months?
I got it. I just thought of it. This is how they should end and then reboot it. You got Batman, and Joe, I'll thank you a little bit for this because of talking about the video game. So something happens, Superman loses his crap. Batman kills Superman. How epic would that be? Superman dies and Batman kills because it was the only way he could save the world.
I'd read it. I would read it.
That would sell so many issues, but diehard fans would get very upset.
Yeah. The thing here is, I think you're right, though. There's been a lot of coasting. DC, and we've been seeing on the DC Corner and on our Comics Week in Review podcast, they have been coasting for most of their books. There's a few examples, and when we come back to DC later, we'll talk about some of the ones that are actually doing a better job. But there is a lot of coasting as they get ready for convergence. Before we get to all those, though, let's skip for a second, because we've been talking a lot about one independent book that sort of grabbed the whole review crew here. IDW has introduced or there's been a separate imprint that's been publishing through IDW for about a year now called Darby Pop, and they've had some really good books out. City of Mind and the Machine, one of them, Indestructible, another one, and then Doberman, which is written by the guys who did It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm pulling up their names.
Yeah, and Nick was the first one to grab this one and really go nuts with it, and now we've all started going back and reading either all or part of the series. There's 5 issues out, including the issue that came out last Wednesday. And this one is just over-the-top fun. Nick, take it away. Talk about it a little bit, because I know you've been reading it more than the rest of us.
So, Doberman is a story about a detective from back in the day, like the 90s. And I really think in the first issue, they didn't just say the 90s, they said back in the day. Like that was the the date of the flashback. And he loses his, hello Stephen, he loses his partner in a typical drug bust. And he goes off and goes into the woods. And so he goes into the woods.
We can still hear you, Nick. It's just we're catching Stephen trying to join the video feed, so just keep going.
I don't know what
I'm
he's
here.
doing.
My video. No, my video is not going to come on because my internet is not fast enough right now because apparently Charter can't get their act together. So
I was just laughing because it sounded like someone who was bare ass in a leather chair.
Yeah, we're just taking turns. Last week was my fun time to have all this fun, so now it's Stephen's turn. Either Nick or Joe will be doing this next week.
Okay, so Doberman.
This is the only reason I came back on is to talk about Doberman.
So Doberman is this detective, and he's trying to bust the guy. He comes out of retirement. He's living in the woods. Comes out of retirement to bust this criminal. And this book is so over the top. It is amazing. It's well written. It's though the jokes are well written, and it is Chuck Norris. If Chuck Norris and Mel Gibson from Lethal Weapon had a love child, Doberman would kick its ass. So, this guy likes kicking ass, drinking beer, and eating pretzel sticks. And he's out for revenge, and it's just the things that happen are hilarious. From him beating a man with a bar of soap with no clothes on. He comes out of the shower. Someone pulled a gun in the station. The criminal got a cop's gun and threatened to kill everyone. Doberman's in the shower. He comes out buck naked and beats a man with soap on the rope. You think he's about to beat someone with a phone book, and instead he rips it in half just to show he can rip a phone book in half to intimidate the guy. But let's get to the issue 5, and we will do some spoilers here. The arc has been finished, and it's Doberman's big showdown versus the bad guy, and it seriously played out like Lethal Weapon 2. And you have everything from, I'll let Joe talk about the car, but you have a scene where he gets shot, and I'll raise my hands when this is over. He gets shot, and so he goes down, and he gets back up when the bad guy isn't looking, and you think, oh, he's wearing a vest. So he takes him down, then there's this big chase scene, and like 5 or 6 pages go, and he's sitting outside the ambulance, and they say, lucky you were wearing a vest. He goes, what vest? And pulls his shirt off, and he's got bullet holes in his chest. And that's when he just turns to his partner and goes, what blood type are you? O positive. Close enough. Get in the ambulance. So it's just ridiculous over the top, and it is.
It's an 80s action movie in a comic.
It really is, but with humor, with
right.
Like Deadpool-esque humor.
It's part parody and part tribute, and it's all awesome. It's just really well done, and you find yourself in awe of the action, but also laughing your socks off at the same time. It's a great book.
And as a new reader, I jumped in issue 5, unfortunately, but I didn't feel lost one bit. As soon as I jumped in, I knew what was going on, and it was hilarity from page 1.
Yeah, we're not talking a Mark Miller plot line. You're reading this book for the humor and the ridiculous action.
And the super puns.
The super...
But the plot line's still solid.
Yeah.
It holds its own. I mean, that's what makes it so good. Is that it's funny and it has a decent plot line. It's not just like completely ridiculous, like zombie terms.
Yeah. And I will say one thing that I would like to reinforce. I know I do, and I think the whole site, we are pretty supportive of Darby Pop. They're bringing out some pretty cool stuff, and they are receptive to us, and we are receptive to them. So I hope this series keeps going, and I hope these guys write some other stuff. Now, I read Creature Cops. I don't know if I'm going to get on board with that, but
that was kind of odd.
It was very odd. It was pushing the Doberman envelope. But if you like the absolute absurd, read Creature Cops. It's about hybrid animals live, like panda dogs and boa alligators. So.
Yeah, Darby Pop celebrated their 1-year anniversary now, and I've really liked some of their other books as well, like Indestructible and City Mind and the Machine. So they're doing some good stuff.
They're partnered with IDW, I think, to get some.
Right there. All their stuff gets published through IDW, which of course IDW publishes about 5 million books a week. But Darby Pop really stands out in terms of quality from what they're doing. I've really enjoyed it.
So I'm going to give credit to the writers here. We have Jack Lambert, Rob Russell, and Scott Martyr. And I think Lambert and Russell are the writers for Always Sunny.
And that really shows for me because I love Sunny. So it really shows through their style.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to what's been going on in Marvel last week, Joe.
Well, this week we had some good titles. My favorite was the new volume for my favorite ongoing series, the Uncanny Avengers, coming out of Axis. Of course, we some of the original members can't really be with the team anymore. Thor isn't Thor. Captain America is not Captain America. Logan is dead. And so the Scarlet Witch, and the biggest thing is the Scarlet Witch and the Quicksilver and Axis, they found out Magneto's not their father. So this really kicks off with them really searching for who their father is, and it's led them to Counter Earth, which is a planet situated on the other side of the sun where we can't see them, and it's basically the flip side of Earth. Instead of humans, you've got like animal people, and the character that from the X-Men universe that people would recognize, the High Evolutionary, is going to be a huge part of this because that's one thing he's always kind of been a part of. But this new team of this new Unity Squad, which is comprised of Rogue, Dr. Voodoo, the all-new Captain America, the Vision, and Sabretooth is brought along because he's recently been inverted and he's kind of a good guy, and they need him to track them. And they go to Mount Wundagore, and it basically takes the team to this new Counter Earth, but it separates them, and they all are separated in their own little dangerous situation because they don't like mutants over there, and they don't like humans. So that's pretty looking like it's going to be a pretty good story. Nick started having thoughts about it, but then he started to come back around because it's not that bad.
So what I was reading last night that put me to sleep, the first half, I literally fell asleep reading this book. The iPad, like, I know it's time to go to bed when the iPad bounces off my face. And it was just really, I thought it got a boring start, but it did end strong. And I will read it next month because I do want to see Sabretooth get out of the jam because I think he's going to be the most likely. So it's good. I really like the old Uncanny Avengers, though. I like that squad, but Joe's right. We're losing a lot of we lost a lot of them. I'm glad they kept Rogue.
But moving on, my kind of soapbox of the hour is going to be Uncanny X-Men number 30. A great issue. It follows the last will and testament of Charles Xavier, where they've come across this mutant that Charles Xavier has kind of wiped his memory of being a mutant, so because his power is so out of control and unstable that he could unmake the world in a thought. And he won't kill. He didn't want to kill him, so this is the best way he could do it. Well, now Charles Xavier is dead, and there's no way to handle this guy. So Scott Summers, who's kind of a rogue character at this point, recruited him and said, "I'm gonna take him, and he's gonna be with us." But Shield at the last issue, the Shield showed up and pretty much killed him. Killed Cyclops, him, and Magic, in like an explosion. And in this issue, they kind of pick up from there, and this guy's able to bring himself back, but he can't bring them back. And the other big thing that goes on is there's a new X-Man who's traveled to the far past to talk to Charles Xavier about what he's done and what they need to do to fix this problem that he started. And the issue kind of ends with him showing up in the present to, I guess, stop this problem. Which and this is a really good issue, but my main problem is, we talked about this before, that there's 4 or 5 different X-Men titles, and not one of them touching on the aftermath events of Axis, which were really huge for the X-Men. They became evil, took over Manhattan, tried to wipe out humans, and now everyone's going on with their solo title, but no one is really addressing this, and that kind of irritates me, because I've really been looking forward to this issue. And even online, the description for the title alludes you to the fact that that's what this issue is about, and it's really not. But don't get me wrong, it's a good book, but it's just not the one I wanted from the X-Men.
I thought it was a good book to issue. I see what you're saying, and there's way too many X-Men going on. And now the X-Men and Spider-Man, that was out this week, and that was...
Yeah, that was kind of a...
And the issue is, the Uncanny X-Men, I think, they both have new classes of X-Men. And I think the Uncanny X-Men kids are way more interesting than the Wolverine, which is now Spider-Man and the X-Men. And the most interesting X-Men in that group were Quinn Quire and Heidi and Brood, and they're not even in it anymore.
So it's... And I like the art style in Uncanny myself. I think the style is really good. But moving on, Nick, you said you read Thor. Thor was a pretty good issue. We get to see the Odin son finally meet up with the new female Thor, and he just doesn't like it one bit. And he wants his hammer, but once he sees that the hammer actually performs better with her than it did with him, the light kind of goes off, and he kind of accepts it and endorses it in the end. But
but I think it also didn't hurt that she got a little frisky with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say the neatest part was that the whole issue, he's demanding, who are you? I want to know who you are. And he goes, are you my mother? Because his mother's gone missing. And then
she's one of the suspects.
Yeah, and then she just plants a big old kiss on him and goes, well, do you think so now? And he goes, I sure hope not.
So what I love about Thor is the fact that they are it's very well written. It is very well written, and it is. Is it Aaron?
Yes, Jason Aaron, yes.
Oh, my God. Well, Aaron killed it with Star Wars, so Jason Aaron right now is my favorite. But he is giving you hints, small hints. So we know now whoever is Thor can't fly. She speaks in the king's tongue, not the...
Well, she's from Earth. She's from Earth. Yeah, because she thinks in Earth talk, but speaks in Asgardian. Yeah.
She talks in, she thinks in, the King's English. She talks in whatever. And then we know it's not the mother now. Like, every issue they do something else.
At the end, his mother showed up, so that eliminated her from the equation. I just hope it's not somebody lame like Jane Foster, or,
So, yeah. So what, I can't see what comic's over there. Is there another one? Did I miss this last week? Oh, no, it's just a highlight. Did I miss this last week? Is this the second week you're doing this? I finally see the trend there.
Yeah, well, that's the ones I just talked about.
I know, no, I see that. I feel dumb. I didn't realize that last week. Did you realize that, Ed?
No, but I like that. That's very cool.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let me hit a little bit of DC then here this week. Or did you have another Marvel to hit?
I got one or two I'd like to talk about while we're over there.
Go
If
for
that's
it.
okay. So I enjoyed. Steven didn't like Deadpool, but
Nope.
Steven hasn't been reading like the Marvel series religiously. I like Deadpool because Deadpool is actually dealing with the Axis, whatever. His wife like sends him on a vision quest because you're trying to become the man you once were. And it is a stupid one-off storyline, but the humor's there. Deadpool's got me laughing, and the cover was badass. It was a
Yeah,
Mad Max cover.
the cover was amazing. There was one joke in there that I can't remember what it was. He refers to a song in that.
Yes, yes. No, I think if I
And
don't
that was
know,
the best part.
he said something about funk, and she goes, "I don't understand this funk," and he goes, "I'm doing a bad job as a husband if my wife doesn't understand the funk."
Yeah, doesn't he write something down like expose her to funk or something like that,
Yeah.
like a note to self kind of thing?
I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I love that.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. There was something else in there. I have the book upstairs, but
It's well written. There was a joke in there. I'd have to reread it, but there was a joke in there that I'm like, really? I'm surprised they went there. Like this group and their humor. I don't know if it was a Pokemon joke. It was interesting. It was definitely younger than the writers.
yeah, they definitely said something about Pokemon. I remember that.
That's what it was then. Yeah, I was surprised the Pokemon joke was in there because these writers are older than me.
Yeah, Carnage showed up in the Nova book, and that was pretty good. The New Avengers was pretty good.
New Avengers is definitely the most like thought out. Like really, like you got to think about it. It's more of a read than an action.
Yeah,
it's very cerebral.
It's definitely a wordy book.
It's been cool though. The plot's been cool. It's had this deep like we're one step. The New Avengers are one step ahead of everyone else, and you're trying to not let them be one step ahead of you while you read it, kind of thing.
And then of course, lastly, Spider-Man 2099 was the last tie-in for Spider-Verse, which was really good. There was a really cool steampunk version of the Sinister Six.
Yeah, that was. Well, they showed that in the team up before too, though.
Did that? I must have
Yeah,
forgot
so you
about
had
that.
an exposure of all of them, and that was really cool too. But I like the fact that you have old technology Spider-Man and new technology Spider-Man kind of running mates. Everything's pretty good there. Yeah. Spider-Verse is amazing.
All right, Ed.
Okay, moving on to DC. We had couple of things in here. In Batman Eternal, we finally got a view from the other side. If you go back to, I think it was Batman 28, they had a look ahead for Batman Eternal and said this is what's going to happen a few months from now. And we finally got to see that scene with Spoiler and Catwoman and Batman from a different angle. Got to see how it built up. It was a neat reveal. It gave a little extra twist to the thing.
Are you going to go into Batman next?
Sure.
Okay, because I'll say something after both of the reviews, but yeah, I was really happy to finally see it, to finally see the teaser we had, and you're like, how's it gonna build into this? And it went into it nice. We had Bluebird, Spoiler, Catwoman, Batman all in the same room. Tim Drake's growing on me. He really is a good character in both Eternal and Future's End.
That's true.
He's a solid supporting actor in both these movies. You know what I mean?
Oh, you mean Cal, right?
Cal. Oh.
Yeah, Cal the
I got
bartender.
Roy Harper over here laughing at me.
There you go. Then we've got Batman with Endgame, where now we're getting, and this is somewhat spoilerish if you haven't read it, and we've been talking about this pre-show. Giving you the idea that Joker is actually sort of like Vandal Savage and some of the other immortals, that he's always been around and has some sort of strange regenerative power.
So, I think the way they're doing it, though, it's so creepy. Like, so we all love witches. So we all love Snyder for his horror. He's great with American Vampire. The guy does scary. That's his thing. and they just, the way they were revealing the Joker in the past is so spooky. Like, look at this picture from back in the day. There he is in the background. Look at this. I've seen him. And then you have James Tyon doing his backstory after, talking about how all these criminals, all these patients have seen him or how they've heard of him in myth. So it's creepy. But I'm sorry, Ed, I totally interrupted. That's kind of what I do.
That's okay. No, I wanted you to jump in on that part because
It's like the new Slender Man.
yeah, I'm
Yes! Yes!
yeah.
Yes!
The thing is, though, I'm having trouble grasping it because I thought Joker was creepy enough as he was, so I'm not sure I'm really into making him an immortal like Vandal Savage. But the story is well written. I'm just not sure I'm ready to have this new origin for the Joker to sort of fly in the face of everything we've been reading since the 1940s. Although, I'm usually the guy who says, deal with change, it needs to happen, go move with it. So we'll see how it plays out.
Now, this is what I've been waiting to say. Scott Snyder does both Eternal and Batman.
Yeah.
And he's basically said, take everything, oh, you love Batman because of this, you love Batman because, I don't care. I am going to flip your world upside down, and you're going to love me or hate me, but probably love me. He's introducing sweet new characters. He's changing like the way you look at Batman, and they just kind of let him have free reign with DC's best-selling character, and it's awesome.
And I like 99 and 44 100% of what he's done, so I got to deal with the rest of it. I mean, look at what he did with Zero Year was amazing. What he's done to Catwoman and changing her up in Batman Eternal's been amazing. I like Bluebird. I like what he's doing. It's a good.
Yeah, and the Court of Owls was a great addition. They're a great, like, creepy villain.
That's true.
And they got a shout out. He's really taken what he's done and he's made his own world, and he brings it back around. He really has. He created these characters at the very beginning, and they still show up, and he keeps them alive, and he's pumping life into them.
That's the neat thing here, because when you see the scene in Batman Eternal coming back around, you know that he had this completely in place months and months ago and has managed to very slowly put a little piece here and a little piece there and slowly connect the dots until you come back to this thing in a way that makes sense and doesn't interrupt the flow of the story. So you know this guy's good at planning ahead to pull that off.
So what's the difference in time? So they're in the apartment. So they were in the apartment before they showed us how he got kicked out in Eternal. And now Jim Gordon's out of jail.
Yeah, I want to say it was like 6 months was the difference, if I remember right, originally. And I don't know if they've stuck to that or not, but I think they were originally looking at it being 6 months in the future.
Oh, man, spoiler alert. That means Jim Gordon's getting out of jail, huh?
Yeah. Well, of course, he's had the meeting with the new commissioner and sort of basically said, you got to get me out of here because the new commissioner is asking the old commissioner for help. So we'll see how that plays out.
I would really like them to bring back Nightwing.
Yes. I'm tired of seeing Grayson. Although Grayson comes out this week, I gave up on the series. Grayson's a great spy thriller. It's just the problem is that it's Dick Grayson and not a spy. I don't get it. I want to see Nightwing.
I did buy the variant cover this week, the famous Jock cover of him falling off the building. I bought that variant, the original Nightwing Jock variant, and I also bought the variant where it's the Jock cover of Grayson where he's falling off the building and the Flash is running up the back of the building.
The one variant I've got, and I was talking about earlier, of course, I'm on the road right now, so I don't have it with me. I got the Flash variant of the Flash, which is a copy of the Flash of Two Worlds cover with another Barry Allen coming in through the middle of it and grabbing the steel beam.
So is that the first cover that's had 3 Flashes on the cover? Probably not.
I don't know, but it was pretty cool. The Flash itself was pretty good, and by the way, you were talking earlier, Joe, about not dealing with Axis. This issue of the Flash actually does harken back a little bit to Forever Evil because it starts out with Barry and Patty trying to catalog the people who they found that were dead, that were sort of stashed somewhere after the crime scene to get left, and trying to figure out how they died, why they died, and sort of sorting out who did what to who. So it did touch on that a little bit. But back to the Bat books, there were several out. Arkham Manor, which was pretty good. Gotham by Midnight, I like Ben Temple-Smith's art, but the story is sort of leaving me flat. and then Gotham Academy, which is pretty doggone good, and it's very different than any other Bat book, but I'm a fan.
The Garrett men love this book.
Can't help it. And I know it's sort of weird because it's really meant to be a tween book, but you look at it, it is, the characters are new and unique. They're given great voices. You see a little bit of Batman in there, just enough to make it a Bat book, but it's really still its own book. The writing is spot on. The artwork is really cool, and of course we got an interesting reveal at the end of this issue, with a very famous Bat villain sort of coming into the picture and maybe having some knowledge about Olive's mother.
But it was kind of like they really play him as, and I like this. They did this in Eternal. They play this villain as he's not an evil person. He's just really looking. He's a lonely guy, and I love the fact that Olive looks at him and goes, "I won't tell anyone you're hiding here."
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, I'm scared for my life. It was like, don't worry, I'm not going to tell anyone.
She is a really good character, a really strong character. There's not a lot that really scares her too much, but she's not obnoxious. She's actually a very good, sympathetic character. I just love the book.
Is it weird that two full-grown men love that book? Hell yes. But it's very well written, and I will keep reading it. It's about, especially when I read them digitally, if I can keep reading without pushing in on the screen to see how many pages I have left.
Yeah. By the way, there was another book that was out this week, and I've been a big fan of Multiversity, but this is the Multiversity Guidebook, and it was like $7.99. And basically, yeah, there is a short story in it, but the big point of this is, here's a page. This is Earth number 10, and here's the people in Earth 10. Turn the page. Here's Earth 11. Here's the people in Earth 11. Here's Earth 12. And it's like
a printed wiki.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great wiki, but I don't want to pay $7.99 for a wiki. And that's basically what I did. So it's the only book from Grant Morrison's Multiversity that's disappointed me, and that was the reason it disappointed me. Why pay that much for something that's basically a wiki? That of course Future's End kept going on, which is really good, and Earth 2 World's End, which I'm sort of tired of and waiting to see what happens on that.
Well, I thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you?
No, go ahead.
I know you touched on it real quick. I liked Arkham Manor this week. I really liked. Alfred has been being hilarious in all these Batman books, being a dick to Hush, because Hush is locked up in like a see-through, a clear jail in the middle of the Batcave, and Batman's like, I gotta go back.
Meal.
He made a nice meal. He made this like turkey, and Batman goes, "That smells delicious, but I can't eat. I have to get back out there." And he goes, "Well, I'm disappointed you can't eat it, but it gives me enough satisfaction that Hush gets to look at it and not touch it." And then he gave Hush a ready-eat meal, an REM.
Yeah. Alfred has a great voice in Scott Snyder's work. He really does.
Who's that? Wait, what?
Alfred has a great voice. Scott Snyder and all the Bat writers right now have really nailed Alfred. It's pretty cool.
They're having fun with him, and I really like what Gotham, the show's doing with him, too, making him tougher. But I also enjoyed, and she's not getting it. Well, I read Aquaman. Aquaman was good enough. I wanted to drop the series, but...
Good enough for a T-shirt, I guess.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm like, how could I get real dorky tonight? So, it's good enough. I was going to drop it, but then they teased you're going to get to see Aquaman mom. So he's going to find his mother. And then it really was a teaser. Like, and it made me think when we did our favorite four, how a lot of the ones Mark picked were teasers. The favorite one he liked for Hulk, was the Wolverine was only in one scene at the end, one panel, and that's what they did with Aquamom. So they're like, Aquamom's going to be in this, and you see her in one panel. So now you have to get the next one to see how that interaction is going to be. So that was okay. But Catwoman, they're killing it right now. Like, Catwoman was awesome to start, and then it kind of got really, like, lame. Like, you can just feel like they're writing weak storylines, like goofy, cartoony storylines. And now, because of this Batman Eternal world, they have brought it up a notch. It's really well drawn a lot darker and serious, not really bubbly. And she's running the crime family, and she is ordering hits on because it's what she has to do. Like, she had to snitch an organization, and and it was her cousin. She had to have him killed. And this is a spoiler. This is like 3 issues ago. So, and it's cool. She's dropped the Catwoman. There's another woman who's taken up the Catwoman mantle, and she's more crime boss. And people might not like it because it's not as much Catwoman, more kind of like Gotham, more of a Gotham story than a Catwoman story, more of a real life like crime story that takes place in Gotham. That's good.
That's funny, Nick, because and I'm not saying this is a copy or anything. It's just it's now that I think about it, it's funny because in the Amazing Spider-Man, the Black Cat is kind of becoming like trying to become a crime boss too.
Yes, like in that Hawkeye, Hawkeye and Deadpool. Oh my God, the Hawk cycle, the hover cycle. Hey, Hawkeye.
Okay, guys, before we get into previews for next week, there's a couple of things I want to try to throw in just for the heck of it. One was there's a lot of stories going around about this 11-year-old girl that wrote a letter to DC that got picked up and sort of blew up Twitter. So she sort of basically called out DC for not having more. She said, "I'm a girl and I'm upset because there aren't very many girl superheroes or movies and comics from DC. Marvel Comics made a movie about a talking tree and raccoon awesome, but you haven't made a movie with Wonder Woman." And she made some good points, but all she's gotten from a response from DC is that they've said, yes, girls read comics too, Wonder Woman movie and Supergirl TV both in the works, with more exciting girl power announcements soon, but we don't know what those announcements are. But it's sort of neat to see an 11-year-old girl who's into comics and willing to say something, which is pretty cool.
So I'm going to be the jerk here.
Go ahead and be the jerk.
And tell this girl she needs to get on the internet here. So we have Wonder Woman's coming out. Like, yeah, we get it, but they're doing it. Like, it's taken them a while, but they're doing it, so there's not really a reaction they can have there. They
she's
redid
11 years
Batgirl.
old.
What?
But she's 11 years old.
Yeah, and
I'd feel bad if she was 5.
Here's the thing, though, guys. You take a look at the lineup. Take a look at the lineup, though, of comics and who headlines the comics. And most of the comics are headlined by white males. I mean, you just look at the great majority of the books out there. While you do have Wonder Woman and Catwoman, the great majority of the books are not for women. And it's you had like a few years ago the Batgirl of San Diego. I don't know if you remember that story or not, but it was when the New 52 was first coming out, and it was a Stephanie Brown fan who's a mom who had a really cool Stephanie Brown costume, and she stood up and was just very politely asking the same question at different DC forums, and there were people really being jerks to her, not the comics folks, but some of the fans. But she kept making a point. Why don't you have more opportunities here? So I think it's cool anytime someone says, "I'd like to see characters that look like me," whatever that happens to be.
So I guess I'm really so I wrote an article, put it out there a few weeks back about the diversity in comics. In DC, you're right, 100% right. DC is falling way behind Marvel. Marvel came out with Miss Marvel, which is probably the best step forward for little girls any comics done. But I do think DC's kind of trying with Gotham Academy, with their redo of Batgirl, and yes, they're finally bringing out a Wonder Woman movie. But we'll all admit, DC, it's not that they are bad with movies for women; they're just bad with movies, right?
They are bad with movies, period. And but I still think it was an interesting thing for this girl to do it, and I thought it was pretty cool for them to at least someone to sort of hold a few feet to the fire. I don't think that DC's purposely being jerks about it, but then again, it's good to keep folks reminded that you got to work on diversity. And there's a few steps forward DC took last year. There's also a couple of major steps backward they took. So I thought it was pretty cool for the letter to be out there. And I'm always cool when there's an 11-year-old or something that gets some guts and is willing to stand up and be counted. It's pretty cool.
No, and yeah, I came across maybe a little.
Well, you said you were gonna be the dick about it, so
Someone has to be.
Job well done.
Oh no! What did you? Oh, there.
Oh no!
It's not a good idea anymore, huh, Joe?
Man down.
But so where's the diversified? Okay, so there was a stat that is DC needs to pay attention to. That okay, this isn't going to open. Here we go. So right now we're looking at 46.6% of comic readers on a 24 million plus base size is women. Almost 50% of comic readers is women right now. So,
and by the way, yeah, and before anybody happens to note on our podcast the alarmingly white male makeup of our crew, we've been actually trying to recruit female reviewers to the site for well over a year. We just haven't been successful. So if there are folks out there in the audience who would like to also join in and join our crew, we would be more than happy to talk to you. You can email us through our website, diggingthestash@gmail.com. You can also catch, if you see my little Twitter feed right there, at xberryxallenx, or some of our other guys, just contact us, because we'd love to have some additional perspectives on our own site. And that way you can hold our feet to the fire. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, they're not writing the books for us anymore, so.
Well, the thing about it is I'm not so sad about that, because I want comics to last a few more years, and that stat you wrote about is absolutely right. If we don't have more diversity, if they keep writing for 35 to 45-year-old white males, that's not the way to keep the medium going, and I'd like to see comics be around long enough for me to someday have grandkids and share it with them.
Well, you know what, Ed? If they don't, they can always start reading Marvel.
Oh, perish the thought.
and that's what I'm going to say. I really think, and I don't read it because it wasn't my demo, it wasn't written for me, but I really think that Marvel killed it with Miss Marvel. You have a Middle Eastern teenage girl who's dealing with enough just being a Middle Eastern teenage girl in American school going through puberty or whatnot, and she gets superpowers, and it's well written. And
in fact, there was a recent thing, I forget what city it was in, but there were some anti-Muslim ads being put on buses. I want to say it was San Francisco, but I may be wrong. And the way people dealt with those hateful images was they pasted over parts of it with pictures of Ms. Marvel.
Nice.
And changed the whole message of the sign. It was pretty cool.
Was this in Australia? Because there was something in Australia where a lot of people were getting.
You could be right. I don't remember the location. I just remember the ads. They were awfully cool the way they redid them.
There's seldom things in this world that happen that make me proud to be a human being. And what happened there was an attack, and Muslims were getting singled out because of it. And some woman said, if you do not feel safe riding the bus, because a lot of people were taking flack on bus and not feeling safe in public, the woman goes, if you're riding the bus, I'll ride with you. I'm going this way. I'll ride with you. I'll sit with you. And then that just went viral on Twitter, that I'll ride with you. And it was just non-Muslim people sticking up for Muslims that were taking a hit because of some bonehead that did a terrorist act. It was really cool.
That is cool.
And we just got political.
That's all right. Before we get too political, let's move to another thing that's actually stirring some controversy of a different kind, and that is WizardCon, which the Wizard World Cons have been really successful in some cities. In some of their larger ones, they've done a really great job, but now they're sort of branching out and trying to go into all sorts of different cities. I live near Raleigh, North Carolina, and was really surprised to hear there's going to be a Wizard World Raleigh, and some of the local cons are not happy to see this additional con coming in and grabbing up money from potential convention goers. They're referring to it as the Walmart of cons because they're coming in and moving in, sort of trying to horn in on the market where there's successful local cons. There may be room for everybody. I don't know. I'm not real impressed with the Wizard World Raleigh lineup that's coming up, but you've got a couple of other major cons that hit in the Raleigh area. One of them is for anime fans called Animazement, and I've been to a couple of those, and it's pretty awesome. And then, of course, NC Comic Con, which is one of the better cons I've seen. It's a great local con. But, not to spread any hate to Wizard World, because obviously Steven goes to the one in St. Louis that's really good. But it sounds like there's going to be some battles going on for turf over these conventions here. I'm not sure I'm really liking the idea that one group could take over all the con market. So I'm hoping we'll still see some room for other folks.
I kind of agree with you. We talked a little pre-show about it, how I've been to a couple of the ones up here in Louisville where I live, and not only do I enjoy the small ones because they are small, they're a little less expensive, a little less invasive, a little less overwhelming, and still really fun. So I kind of hope that doesn't spread up here as well, because I enjoy going to the little ones every now and then.
To play devil's advocate here, though, a little bit, isn't it possible that this could be a good thing for some of these cons that are smaller, they're decent cons. I get that, Raleigh has a good con, Gail Simone's there, and there's some good people there, but if they're having one in, where in Iowa is it? Did I say?
I think Des Moines.
Des
Moines, yeah. So how fantastic is that they're going to have that opportunity to, have a con in Des Moines, which, to my knowledge, I don't know if there was one, and there wasn't much of one here in St. Louis until Wizard World started coming 2 years ago, and it's been fantastic.
I think the deal to me is going to be just seeing what impact it has, especially when it comes to small press, to some of the indie creators, because the local cons tend to cater more toward, like NC Comic Con will have a Gail Simone there, and it'll have a Neil Adams there, but they'll have a lot of folks who are, Valiant, Dark Horse, Action Lab, some of the different guys there that Wizard tends to want to bring in more of the Marvel DC guys, and so I could see it having some impact on the exposure that struggling artists would have, or struggling writers would have. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but we're going to see this battle played out big time over the next few years, because Wizard World is definitely interested in pushing this thing, whether it's popular with the other guys or not. They're going to keep pushing their point. So we'll see how the local cons can deal in terms of staying alive. I can get the Walmart analogy. It's really going to be when Walmart moved into towns. A lot of other businesses went out of business, but then some other stores figured out how to specialize and survive and thrive in spite of Walmart being next door. So we may see some local cons learn to adapt and survive. For this year, I'm not impressed with what's coming into Raleigh. I'd still be supporting Animazement and NC Comic Con more, but we'll see what the future brings.
Well, so if you get when you have too many of these cons, you're not going to get the kind of talent, because they're not going to want to go to cons every week. They have a job to do. They have to write. And I know, so nothing bad about Wizard World. We had Wizard World in Chicago forever, but then they came out with, and I'm a big supporter of C2E2, because DC and Marvel kind of got together and were like not really big on the Wizard World in Chicago. They wanted something that they could kind of take their own. So that's what C2E2 was basically started with, Marvel and DC getting together and saying we want a bigger con in Chicago. So you got these, once the publishers decide to get over, they rule, I think.
But what draws C2E2? We were talking before the show, E2, and the lineup is good to a degree, but it's not overwhelmingly exciting.
Depends on why you get excited. There's some things coming to C2E2 that I can't wait to see.
When you go comic, just strictly comic and not guests, I think WizardCon wins on like TV guests. They usually do. They have the TV, the cult followings, the Walking Dead characters, the wrestlers, the freaking Power Rangers. I don't get the draw there, but you know. And the thing about Wizard World, I mean C2E2, when I'm looking at the lineup right here, you have Rick Remender coming, you have Dan Slott, Amanda Connor, Ryan Stegman,
Jimmy Palmiotti.
So with that being said, what you're saying is that Wizard World does well at catering towards the TV folks, and some of the movie folks are catering to the comic book fan. So doesn't that mean that there's room in the world for both cons?
There is, and they both sell very well. I think so.
I think there is in the bigger cities. There's room for both cons. If you're in Chicago or St. Louis or LA or someplace, I think there's certainly room for both. The concern really is when you get to a smaller market, and you know, is there enough of a fan base with enough disposable income to be able to afford multiple cons? And that's where you're going to find out what happens. And I think that's the deal, is that as they get into smaller and smaller markets, Wizard World will either find that they're not making enough and they pull out of the market, or they'll run some local con out of business. And that's where there's some pushback coming on it. And I'm not trying to make Wizard World into a bunch of evil people, but you know, I know some of the guys that deal with NC Comic Con. I've dealt with some of the folks with Animazement, and you know, I've got a natural bias toward the local guys, and we'll see. Hopefully, they'll be able to do well.
Yeah, and speaking from my experience, that's right. I live in the third biggest city in the U.S., and there's plenty of there's plenty of pie to go around.
Oh yeah, there's just not very much room to go fast on the highways around Chicago. Especially rush hour.
That's why I'm working on building a rocket pack.
There you go. Okay, let's talk about next week here. Let me actually, Joe, give us next week's Marvel.
All right. Starting off, we have Star Wars #2, which we all liked here, so should be good news for that. Wolverine's #5. The Guardians of the Galaxy and X-Men crossover starts next week in Black Vortex #1. Punisher #15. Return of the Living Deadpool starts tomorrow with issue #1. Operation Sin #2. The Marvel film adaptation Ant-Man Prelude issue #1 comes out. Ant-Man #2. The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl #2. Angela Asgard's Assassin #3. All New Captain America Fear Him #1. Hulk #11. We were just talking about Ms. Marvel. She's got a new issue out this week, #11. Nick, Hawkeye #21, and The Avengers #41 as time runs out. 3 months to go.
If they came out with a Hawkeye every year, every month, like normal comics, we'd be on like Hawkeye 50. Also, did you read the first Squirrel Girl?
I did. I really didn't like it that much, but you know, we were talking earlier about a different hero for different people, and I did notice that she was, I guess, she wasn't the usual very attractive character, and I think that was kind of a neat way that they did that, but I didn't care for it too much.
Over at DC, we've already talked a little bit about Superman's coming out this week with a new power and a slightly redesigned costume with the fingerless Madonna gloves. Action 39 comes out with the end of Horrorville in Smallville. Batman Eternal's out. Detective 39 continues the Anarchy storyline, and this is Brian Bucciolato and Francis Manipool. I'm a big fan of this pair, and I like what they're doing with Detective. Earth 2 has an issue. Also, World's End has an issue. Future's End has an issue. Green Lantern 39, he goes back to meet with the Templar Guardians, and we're going to start off on a new thing there. And that's just some of the books that are coming out from DC this week. Then over at Dark Horse, Oh yeah, yeah.
They've been doing the classic Green Lantern Green Arrow team up.
Oh, cool. I've been missing that. I'll have to check it out. Uh, Dark Horse has Lady Killer #2 coming out, and if you've not seen this one yet, it's interesting. The book almost looks like an image book coming out of Dark Horse, and I mean that. I don't mean to insult either publisher, but this Lady Killer is sort of like a woman straight out of the 1950s, 60s Mad Men kind of era, where you think she's just the perfect little housewife and mother. Only when everybody's gone from the house, she's a hired killer that's hired as an assassin, and she manages to kill people in about the most brutal ways possible. It's actually a really cool book. Ghost comes out as well from Dark Horse. Boom has got The Woods, and their Archaea imprint has Feathers, which is an interesting little book. I like it. And Dynamite is continuing their tribute to King Feature Syndicate's 100th anniversary with Jungle Gym #1. Then Red Sonja Vulture Circle, which is Nancy Collins writing that, has its second issue out, along with Nancy Collins on Vampirella #9.
She's really taken over as a pretty good comic book writer, huh?
Oh man, I love just about anything she writes. You'll like this one. Nick Cal comes out this week. Issue #8. Then Egos #5. This is from Image. Cal Egos, Oddly Normal, which is an interesting tween book. Saga comes out. Sheltered comes out. Spawn 250 comes out, with supposedly the return of our original Spawn. Witches comes out this week. Nailbiter, which is a very nice, creepy little book by Joshua Williamson that's really cool. Valiant has Imperium #1, where Toyo Harada, who's like the big bad, super-powered version of Lex Luthor, that's sort of the major bad guy in the Valiant universe, deciding he's tired of playing games, he's just going to take over. And basically goes about doing it. Then Exo-Man of War 33, which starts a new story arc after Armorines is finished. And then over with our friends at Action Labs Danger Zone, Zombie Tramp #7 comes out. So the Adventures of Janie once more, and TM Chu is back on the artwork on this one, so we'll see how that one turns out. And that's sort of the big stuff here. Let's do picks and pans. What's your picks, Joe?
I'm gonna go with Doberman this week.
Hey Nick, what's yours?
Doberman.
You know what? I'll have to make it unanimous. That's a pretty awesome book.
Yeah, Doberman. Doberman for sure.
We even got Steven in on that one. Okay, what's your pass?
Can I just say really quick, coming onto this book, one of my first things I reviewed was Doberman. It was like my 4th review, and I hung on to this, and I feel very proud of this, that now it has become the unanimous pick of the week.
Well done.
And with that said, I did not care for Spider-Man and X-Men.
Okay, well, there's a pass right there, Joe. What about yours?
I'm gonna have to second that emotion because it was pretty lame.
Yep, my pass, and it really surprised me, is Multiversity Guidebook. It's simply because it was $7.99 for a wiki. Steven, did you get any other books to have a pass on?
I tried to pick up Drifter, and it was no good.
Okay, so there's your picks. There's your picks and pans for the week. Normally, Steven will be guiding this whole thing through, but he's been having some technical difficulties. We're glad to have his voice at least with us. We'll be posting this back up on the site before long, and also having it joining our podcast stream. And then hopefully next Sunday night we'll go back to our regular schedule. We skipped last night because of a little sporting event that you may have heard of. But we'll be back on next Sunday with more of the Comics Week in Review. And in the meantime, just keep reading TM Stash. Be sure to like us on Facebook and check out our YouTube channel. And we'll catch you again next week. Thanks, guys.